Hey. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Painter. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in today. We have people from all over the world that are joining us on all kinds of different platforms. We have many of you that are here on Zoom with us. We have a lot of people that are watching on Facebook Live. We are so excited to have you here because this is the kickoff of our Make More Money challenge. The goal is to figure out how to make more money. If you can figure out how to make more money, then that can change your world. The way you make more money is that you study successful people and then you do what they do. Now they're doing it much, much bigger. We're going to do it smaller, but the strategies are the same. The systems are the same. We're going to show you in a very simple way how they do what they do. And then if you follow that, if you're making a cake and you have the same recipe that your grandmother had, most likely you can make that same cake unless she didn't tell you the secret. There's probably a few secrets that grandma didn't tell you because she wanted to not tell you that. But if she told you all the secrets, then you could do the same thing that she's done. So today I'm so excited to be able to have my good friend, Mr. Werner Berger, on with us. I've known Werner for many years, for decades, at least 1.5, maybe 2 decades. He is a world record holder. He has climbed the top mountains on the 7 continents that are out there, the 7 biggest ones on the 7 continents. More importantly, though, he is 85 years of age and he is about health. Now, we talk about health, wealth, and multiple streams of income. Very rarely do you hear it in that order. Most of the time you just hear it about wealth or money or making more. I just want to go make more money, make more money. Well, you're going to make more money, but the key, though, for long-term generational wealth is you have to put your health first. You got to put your health first. Then we start working on the wealth, and the goal is to have that wealth and those items that we buy and create, and the assets that we create streams of income, health, wealth, and multiple streams of income. Now, this is probably the most important part. Myself, I had a heart attack when I was 34 years of age. I've got one little artery that's kind of got a hard left to it that has created some problems for me in the past. And I've had 2 back surgeries, and I earned those myself. I worked really, really hard. I took on too much responsibility. I was running these massive companies, doing millions and millions of dollars worth of sales. We had 250 employees. I was signing everything personally. My butt was on the line to make them work. If we didn't make money, then we didn't have money to pay salaries for people who, I just had all that stress on my body and stuff like that. And so I earned those. I earned them myself. I don't want you to do what I did. Okay. I don't want you to have those same things. I want you to do it differently. And if I could go back and look at it, I would do things quite differently. But today I'm so excited to have Werner on. Not only is, like I said, is he's an accomplished climber. He's been on the top of Everest. I've seen Everest from a helicopter and I've seen it by airplane, but I've never climbed it, never done anything close to that. And he's going to be teaching you about some of the strategies. But more importantly, what I've really asked him to do is teach us about health, wealth, and multiple streams of income. And health is at the first of that. So Werner, take it away. And we're going to talk about health, wealth, and multiple streams of income.
Thank you so much, Tom. I'm saying this a little bit with tongue in cheek because there are 2 aspects of health. One is good news and the other one is bad news. And of course, the good news is we have this phenomenal body that when we take care of it, it functions like a dream machine because the Creator created it to support you to be healthy. And all we need to do is not get in the way of this. And of course, the bad news is we do get in the way of this. And unfortunately, we do build up addictions. And they are hard to break until you are totally, and I mean totally, committed to break them. And health, unless one is really suffering, is one of those ones that is hard to break because the results normally are not instantaneous. And the balance of consequences tells us that if the reward is personal, the reward is immediate, and the award is certain, you will take action based on that. And when we're talking about addictions, the rewards are personal in the short term, very costly in the long term. They definitely are immediate, and they are certain if in fact you are in that mode. And that's, of course, where your energy is going to go. Anyway, let's get into it. And what I'm going to share with you, some of you are going to consider, oh, health, that's boring. And especially when you're younger. And part of that is we don't want to be held accountable. We want to just do what we want to do, and that has consequences. And Tom was very, very eloquent in sharing the consequences it had on him. And I'm going to share with you some news. And the news is not always good. Also, you need to be aware that what I'm going to talk about needs to be modified relative to your culture, because people have different food choices. An example are the Eskimos in the far north. They live predominantly on blubber. And when you think in terms of us here in the South or in North America eating blubber, we would get enormously fat. And we would probably not even, we would get skinny because we would hate what we're eating. So this needs to be modified with food. I, for example, grew up on a farm in South Africa. There were times that we ate worms. They were called masanjas, and they were delicious. As kids, of course, we experimented because that's what the native Africans did. They ate grasshoppers because that was their protein. Different cultures eat snakes. So anyway, from the time we're going to spend together, start looking for some basic principles and look for some habits that you have that don't serve you in the long term. Or hopefully I will awaken you to some habits that don't serve you in the long term, and start looking for, what are some healthy habits that you can add. And of course, I want to just refer back to this little quote at the bottom. Just know that God, or whatever higher power you believe in or you worship, has gifted you with this amazing body. And it truly is amazing. So here's some of the bad news. Most people today are considered to die earlier than their parents. With all of the medical advances, that's crazy. Also, Thomas already said this, the first sign of a heart attack for 1/3 of people that get it, unfortunately, is not survival. People in North America and in most Western countries die prematurely. In fact, 8 out of 10 do. And then the next statistic is actually worse. The 20% that survive, 85% of them spend the last 15 years suffering, in pain, and on drugs. That's not the way to live. So we need to wake up and look and see what can we do to prevent. And ultimately, the concept of prevention is very easy. It's very simple. And some of you, when I'm going to show you the 5 factors, are going to say, oh, I know that. But then, if 78% of North America is overweight and they know that, what are they doing about it? Finally, we know that type 2 diabetes has a lot to do with overweight. It has a lot to do with glucose intake. It has a lot with insulin resistance, or what is called syndrome X. So the question I want you to ask yourself is it important for you not to go down this road? And if it is important, then there's some things that you need to know, because what I put on the previous page is not an exaggeration. Our global health is in danger. And okay, so let's look at what can you do. And I'm going to show you 5 factors. There are actually 6, but I'm just going to talk mainly about 5. And the first one has everything to do with attempting to reduce toxin intakes. Now, that's not going to be easy. You'll see in a moment why. You want to look at improving your nutritional intakes. You want to definitely increase exercise because your body depends on exercise. It was created to run and jump and do things so that you could even survive in the olden days, especially when we think back of caveman days. Exercise was just the norm. You didn't have to think of exercise. You just simply in your hunter-gathering had to be very physically active. You and I need to continuously look at how do we create life balance? How do we reduce stress in our lives? And finally, and this is really the toughest one, is how do we recreate our mindsets and our attitudes that are holding us back from doing what we know we should be doing, or we know that we could be doing, but we're not doing it. And it's not because you're lazy. And in some cases, of course, it is. It's mainly because you can't until you overcome certain obstacles. Okay, so let's get into it. Toxin reduction, very simple. Do you smoke? And I know when I'm talking to a culture where everybody smokes, they're gonna just simply blow me off. But what we know about smoking is the damage it does to our lungs. And if you look at the statistics, the effect it has on reducing longevity. We know about pesticides and pesticides use. I said, I grew up in South Africa. We didn't use pesticides on the farm. So the food we ate was healthy. Alcohol has this push-pull, you know, on the one hand, we want to have it. On the other hand, we don't want to have it. In excess, it damages the liver. You know this. I don't need to say this. We know that all kinds of vehicle or exhaust from fossil fuels doesn't just damage us. It damages the environment, which has a long-term impact. And of course, then I had to show you this, because we tend to just throw things out that we don't want. And this is an example of park rangers actually collecting water bottles that have just been thrown out in Africa. And that's my wife standing beside this with a water bottle in her hand. And I'm going to show you a close-up of this later because it's so critical in terms of our intake. What we don't recognize is how much plastic is actually in our oceans. There are 5 huge islands of floating plastic that you could drive a tractor trailer on in our oceans. And plastic does break down over time. There are very, very few fish left in our oceans that do not show signs of either pieces of plastic in them or toxic toxicity. I haven't had anything to drink yet this morning, so don't worry about me. Okay, so there's things we can do here. There's things that we unfortunately have to live with to some extent, unless we really get on the backs of people that can do something about it. And those are usually the money people, the money grabbers actually that don't care about the environment and that talk about climate change not being a reality. If we get enough people together to silence them, we can start shifting the globe back to normal. In terms of improved nutritional intake, again, there's some good news and there's some bad news. The bad news is that many foods are nutritionally depleted. And the more rural you are, the less that's the case, unless you're on a farm where there are a lot of pesticides, insecticides, and miticides are used to grow your crops. So an example of food depletion is that if you want 400 units, international units of vitamin E, in today's world, you need to eat 33 pounds of spinach. 1.5 pounds or 1.2 pounds of sunflower seeds, excuse me, 5.2 pounds of wheat germ, 2.2 pounds of almonds. And who the heck can actually do that? Very, very few can ingest this much. And by the way, when we look at apples, they have half the amount of vitamin C, not A, that they actually had in them originally. And unfortunately, that is a factor. So we need to be really selective and just eat foods, even though that they are depleted, have higher nutritional value than others. And of course, if we can get them naturally, even better. Some of the things we need to know about nutrition is the average person needs to eat 5-part carbohydrates, 3-part proteins, 1.5 to 2.5 parts of healthy fats on a daily basis. We don't want to get our fats from ice cream, because ice creams today, especially in North America, are mainly artificial stuff that tastes really good and is really addictive, like French fries cooked in oil that shouldn't even be eaten. Addictive, tasty, sugar cubes, same thing. What we need is fruits and vegetables. And the statistics say we need 5 servings of them as a minimum per day. And of course, when we look at overweight, we saw earlier the number of people that are overweight or obese. This is a life-shortening affliction, unfortunately. But of course, death comes or illness comes in the future. So the balance of consequences and our addictions say to us, keep doing what you're doing. Oh, I know I shouldn't do this, but it tastes good. This is what I feel like, not considering what the long-term consequences are. And think in terms of an athlete. Now, I'm going to talk about exercise a little bit later, but they will work out every single day because they've got a goal. And talk about goal setting. If your goals are shorter term in terms of health, there's a much greater likelihood that you will adhere to what you know you should be doing. The other big part, of course, is water. I read a statistic that shocked the pants off me the other day, and that was simply that there is no rainwater or precipitation that falls on this earth that does not have toxins in it. Precipitation in the Antarctic, precipitation on the top of Everest has toxins in it. So what we need to do, and we need at least 63, 64 ounces of clean water on a daily basis to have this body really function. So what we've done is we get this 5-gallon bottle, we put a filter in it, get a little pump for $10, and everything we cook with, we drink comes from there. And when we go traveling, we have this bottle. It has a filter that takes out everything that is bad for you. And the filter lasts between 60 and 70 gallons. So, and I know that there's a cost associated with this, but again, for those who can, in fact, afford it, there is no reason to be drinking polluted water. And unfortunately, buying bottled water has its detriments, and I won't even go into that. I'm really tempted to, but I won't because of time. Okay, so let's start looking at exercise. We all already know, and I've said this earlier, that our bodies crave exercise. They function well on exercise. Exercise makes them become healthier. And some of the key exercises, of course, are stretching, cardio, weight-bearing sports, any kind of sports, or core strength. And just a few images related to that to drive that home. We're not going to spend that much time here. This could be cardio activity. It could be running. It could be jumping. It could be lying on your back and doing bicycles very rapidly, sort of bicycle motion very rapidly. weight-bearing exercise is absolutely critical to your frame, to your not just your muscles, but your bones. Sports, any kind of sports, it's really supportive because not only is it fun, and whenever I think now these days of fun, I think of Tom Painter. You cannot tell me that this man isn't having fun as he is helping us learn about how to be healthy, how to be wealthy, how to enjoy life. He actually exudes fun. And when you're doing something that you love, that's what happens. And that actually fits into one of the next things I'm going to talk about, and that is life balance. And of course, another one is core strength. We want to do core strength. And throughout it all, we need to breathe. And if you're not doing some of this stuff, you need to breathe, even if it's only going four counts out, 6 counts in, or it's really filling those lungs and getting all the little crevices out and then going and doing that 5 times per day. That will help your lung health, which is so critical, because without lung health, you cannot take the energy that the Lord has given us in the air, the oxygen, the vital oxygen, and create energy and wellness and health. Okay, let's keep going. The other part is creating life balance. And of course, this has everything to do with stress. And it's looking for ways to actually not only relax, but to enjoy. And it could be meditation, it could be yoga, it could be going on a date. It could just simply be playing with rocks at the side of water. It could be a whole bunch of things, because if you don't find a way to do this, the challenges of life might get you. You are the controller of your life. You can create this balance if you choose to do so. And of course, you and I need to look at what percentage of time do we spend working and potentially running after the mighty dollar versus playing. And before we go on, I'm going to ask you to jot in the chat what your percent is work time to play time. Is it 50-50? Is it 60-40? Is it 40-60? Is it 90-10? Just jot that down, because I've got another little question for you after that. Okay, and as expected, your responses are all over the show. The statistic that you wrote down is not the important part. What is the important part is, how do you feel about that balance? Because I know some people that spend 85% at work and they are happy as larks. They don't need to spend any more than 50% playtime, because work is play for them. I know other people that spend 20% at play and 80%, no, said the wrong way around, 20% at work, 80% at play. And that's perfect for them, because it fits their lifestyle. So please look at your life balance. This is not an easy one to adjust. However, you can do it if you focus on it. All right, this is the tough one. And somebody would say to me, yes, Werner, only if you say so. And it really is easy when you know the concept and you're committed to it. And the first image I want to show you is this one here. And it says, clean up the mess that others have created in your mind because you are capable of doing anything. And I'm a really, really good example of this. I grew up the smallest kid in my class. I was always the youngest because I started school at the exact same time as my older brother. And I thought this was great, getting through school fast, never realizing the impact that had on me. And there were some other circumstances that played a role here. I truly grew up thinking I was not good enough. And I spent a lot of my years not thinking, knowing I was not good enough. Those were all creations that had no founding in reality. I have 3 university degrees. I grew a business 700% in the first 7 years of taking it over. I was an athlete at school and at university. I loved sport. I was 193 pounds and I was tough, but I did not know it because there was always something more to strive for, because I did not know what my qualities were. I did not know what my strengths were. And maybe in the background I did, but I did not appreciate them. I don't want you to be in this trap. If you have a sense of not being good enough, if you know that you're a bully or you're running away from things, those are all conditioned situations. And so I want to take you into a formula, and I know Tom loves formulas because they work. I want to take you into a formula for change. I want to set this up a little bit by you looking at this phenomenal picture. Can you see it as awesome, and I mean awesome, creation? Or do you see it as just another day, just another sunset or another sunrise? And when I throw this image at you, what do you see? Jot down in the chat, what do you see? And some of you are going to jot down, I see a vase. Some of you are going to jot down, I see 2 faces. And this is all about perception. If your perception is that you see 2 faces, and I argue with you that I see a vase, we can either be open and say, okay, what am I missing? Or we can get into conflict. And of course, the same is true with this image. The question is, what do you see? Do you see an old woman or do you see a young woman? Just perception. They're both there. Do you see this as, oh, this poor guy, his glass is half empty? Or do you say, hey, what's wrong with this guy? His glass is half full. Our perceptions dictate who and how we show up in life. And I can use the analogy of a bicycle here. I can ask you, and again, jot down in the chat if you would, what's the most important? Is it the gear system? Is it the back wheel? Is it the front wheel? Or is it the handlebars? In a moment, I'm going to equate this to a human being. And you know, some of you are going to say, oh, you left out the frame. Yeah, I did, because it holds everything together. And without it, we'd have nothing. But when we go to human beings, we can ask the same question. What is the most important part of our bike? And of course, the answer is going to be, it's no longer the handlebars, it's the control system. It's the self-management capabilities that we had. And all the years that I didn't think I was good enough, I had no self-management system. I did not know how to access a system to have me look at the balance of this incredible human being, even if I just look at this incredible body and what I'm talking to myself about. I'm not good enough. It's ridiculous. But that's, of course, where learning comes in. And when we start learning, or we start putting this into a framework, we can talk about it as the ABCs of feeling. And the A's in this regard are what is called the activating events, the triggering events, something that happens out there. And most of us react to it. So it creates a C if we do it this way, but that's false. The activating event does not cause you to feel sad, upset, distressed, happy. There's something else going on. But make the assumption that the activating event is scary. So fear is the consequence of it. And of course, as a result, there's a D that comes into play. And the D is what you do as a result of this activating event and your reaction. But the point is that we've skipped by the B. And the B is really the control mechanism here. And as long as we don't know that, and as long as we don't work from this perspective, all we can ever be is victims to the activating event. All we can ever be is victims to the circumstances that are surrounding us. But of course, the good news is that there is a B that will disrupt this little guy from saying, I appreciate being nominated as class president or president of this youth group, but I'm afraid I must decline on the grounds that I am too stupid. Now you think he's being very honest, but actually he's being very dishonest, but he doesn't know it. His conditioning, his brain is wired, and this happens through our formative years. And that's where that first washerwoman or that mopping woman comes into play. Who contaminated your brain to think that you're not good enough? Who contaminated your brain to think that you're stupid? And it could have been a teacher that in her own or his own inability to react with you appropriately said to you, you were stupid. And you took it on as if that were truth. And at that point in our lives, of course, we have very little ability to do that. So the B here has everything to do with your belief system. Now, beliefs are extremely hard to access unless they sort of really very light beliefs. But the way you can start accessing them is to start thinking, okay, what's my perception of this situation? And before I go to the next thing, just raise your hand if you talk to yourself. Just raise your hand. And I know some of you did not raise your hand because when I sit in a room with senior executives, and I've done that in the past extensively, and I've asked this question, a lot of them don't raise their hands. And then my question to them is, whose voice was it that said, oh, I don't have to raise my hand. I don't talk to myself. Oh, whose voice was it there? The key is you and I talk to ourselves every single moment of every day. Sometimes it's in words. Most people, it's in words. And sometimes it's in pictures. I didn't know for the longest time that I talked to myself. In fact, I was 43 before I realized, or somebody said, do you talk to yourself? And my first answer was no. And I'm sure most of your answers were no. And the reason I knew I was talking to myself, because I speak several languages. One day I caught myself speaking in a language that I don't usually speak to myself as. So the minute you know that you speak to yourself and can change what you're saying to yourself, now you can stop being a victim, because now you can start taking control. Now you can be the handlebars of your own bicycle. And that's what I want for you. And the system is very, very simple. The first thing you have to do is you catch yourself talking to yourself and realizing what you're saying to yourself is not necessarily reality. Somebody has a different perspective than you do. And the question then is, okay, if they have a different perspective, how do we get on the same wavelength? One of them is you stop reinforcing what you're saying to yourself and you challenge what you're saying to yourself. And once you've challenged what you're saying to yourself, now you can choose. Now you have power. Before we got to the challenge and choose, you had no power. All you were doing was a puppet that was in reaction. And I know this one. And people could pull my strings very easily because I did not know who I was. I did not know that I spoke to myself. I did not appreciate my strengths. All I could see is my limitations. And by the way, as an athlete, you always know you can be running faster. You could be vaulting higher. You could be jumping further. So, you know, in that sense, that part of my life, which really was a lifesaver to me, because that was what my life was about, was also a detriment in terms of reinforcing, you're not good enough. You're not in the Olympics. You're not the first, even though I was in second place once as a pole vaulter. Yay. Anyway, so in closing, we can see this little guy running around and he is whistling happily to himself. And we don't know if he's seeing the glass half full or half empty, and or what he's seeing in the other images. And we know more than likely he does not love himself. Because if I don't know who I am and I'm not appreciating who I am, how the heck can I love myself? But when I can't see that part because of this. When I start taking and you start taking personal responsibility for your life and knowing this is your life and you can take control and you can be the master of your life, and you and your uniqueness and your specialness can make a contribution in this world to others and to yourself. And you start making commitments, small ones at first, and you keep them and you keep them and you keep them. And making commitments becomes a habit, not just to yourself, but to life as a whole. And you start realizing that you can be trustworthy. You do not have to, I'm going to just say this, pilfer, take something that's not yours because you know it's not yours. And as long as you take it, you think your need is greater than being trustworthy, where the truth is being trustworthy is far more important. And when you say you're going to do something and you focus on that rather than get yanked around by shiny objects, and trustworthiness and honesty, of course, go hand in hand. And you start living in abundance. You know that this world is so incredible. Everything is there to nourish us. The air is there if we don't pollute it. The soil is there to nurture the plants. The plants are there to nurture the animals. The animals and the plants are there to nurture us if, again, we haven't contaminated them with pesticides, insecticides, miticides, and all kinds of stuff. And you realize that if it's not all for one, it is all for none. We are in this world together. We can make it sparkle, and we can make our lives sparkle, and we can make the lives sparkle of others, but we have to have compassion. And as long as I'm a bully, I can not have compassion unless I start looking at what drives me to be this bully, so that I don't see you. And when we do these things and we practice them, then when I control and choose my thoughts, I also know I control my world. So in closing, let me just say, life is about change. Life is about growth. It's about moving from not knowing and not doing what you should be doing to doing. Indecision is toxic because it catches you in the middle. And the big question for you now is, are you going to step into this 90-day challenge to prove and improve your health and your wealth? And hopefully you, with Tom Painter's guidance and his team's guidance, will start doing both, even if it's one step at a time. Tom, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Werner. I'm gonna kind of talk a little bit about some of the stuff that he said. Health, wealth, and multiple streams of income. It's not multiple streams of income first. It's not make money first. It's health first. And I can tell you from my world, when I have felt really good and had a lot of energy, I've done extremely well in our businesses. The businesses have just done really, really well. I can tell you that when I've had bad health, those businesses just cratered. And I've lost millions of dollars, millions and millions of dollars, because I didn't feel good and I didn't have any energy. I was just literally in bed. And I remember many times that I said, I'm just not going to the office because I'll make bad decisions. And other people will do a better job than I will. So in our takeaway, the 90-day challenge, for me, it's health. That's my biggest concern. Werner's not on any prescriptions. I'm on a whole bunch of prescriptions. And I'm 20 plus years younger than he is. I'm 22 years younger than he is, and he's in far better shape than I am. So as a takeaway on our 90-day challenge, we're going to set a goal for everybody. And this is what my goal is too. And I got to tell you, it's not easy to be able to do this, but Werner, and a couple simple things is, number one is water. We need to drink more water. How many ounces of water do we need to drink a day?
64 as a minimum.
All right. So we need to do at least 64 ounces of water. Now, if you're drinking water, most likely you're not drinking other stuff. That's really the way you need to look at it. If you're drinking a lot of water, you're not drinking other stuff. So that's a goal. So I want each of you to put that down as one of your goals, is to do that 64. Number two is we want as clean of source as possible. A cleanest source as possible for your water. That's number one. Number two is fruits and vegetables. You need to eat things that are fresh. Anything is preserved. There's a reason things are preserved. I snuck and ate a couple of these some goodies the other day, and I saw the expiration was like 3 weeks from now. Well, when you're dead, they put preservatives into you, to keep you there. You don't want that. What we want is fresh vegetables. We want vegetables, fruits and vegetables. And how many servings of fruits and vegetables do we need to do a day, Werner?
5.
5.
Minimum of 5.
Okay, so 5 fruits and vegetables. Now that's a problem for me. That's a challenge. I'm too dang busy to go eat stuff like that. Cereal, something like that. That's quick. That's what I'm going to go do. 5. So I'm going to make a commitment that I'm going to work on that part. Okay. Sleep. How many hours of sleep should we get?
7.
7. Now, so these are simple things. You need to get 7 hours of sleep. Now, I got a special needs adult child that will not go to bed. It's real hard for me to get 7 hours of sleep. So how I do it, I take a nap. in the afternoon. I'm going to go pick up a nap. As I'm getting older, that's one of the most exciting things I can do in a day. Exercise. Now, what's interesting, there's two kinds of exercise. There's cardio, where we're going to go work out, and then there is lifts, weightlifting, and then there's stretching. And you look at Tom Brady, who is the GOAT. He's the very best football player, that won the most Super Bowls. He does lots of stretching and resistance with rubber bands, with the bands and stuff like that. And that's what I do more of. I get on my bike because it makes me feel better. I can get up and get going on that. But talk to me about exercise, the simplicity of exercise. How much cardio should we do a day?
It depends a little bit on what your purpose is. As a minimum, we need about 20 minutes of walking per day.
Okay, so we've got to get at least 20 minutes of walking in there. Number two is the stretch bands and things like that. How much of that should we do a day?
Again, it depends on what you want your body to do. If you're building muscle and you're really building strength, you need 30 minutes of weight bearing, and the bands are just really weight bearing. It's just a simple difference between a weight and a stretch.
So
the average person, 10 minutes would be good. And the main reason is not necessarily muscle building, it's strengthening the bones.
okay, now I'm going to give you a confession. I've had 2 back surgeries. If they unscrew the screws out of my back, there's 4 titanium screws back there. If they take those screws out of my back, my butt falls off. So I've got some issues. So I hate it. It's not fun for me. So what I do is I put on music, really loud music, whatever it is, and I get going on stuff like that. And I use the bands. It doesn't matter if you're using weights or bands for me, because I'm really trying to stretch. And I put it on, I set my little timer for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and I will do that. And it's not fun, but you know what? I feel a lot better later. Your goal is to feel better 5 minutes from now, or 10 minutes from now, or an hour from now. It's not just to feel good right now, meaning you've got to do a few things that you're not comfortable with. It's not comfortable to grab those bands and lift and move around. And with my body, I just move until it hurts. And then I just keep moving and moving and moving. But when I'm all done, I feel a lot better. So here's what your goal is. Health. Number 1, we need to drink some water, 64 ounces a day. Write it down, 64 ounces a day. Number 2, you need 5 fruits and vegetables a day. If you're eating the good stuff, most likely you won't eat the bad stuff. We need a minimum of 5. You need to do some cardio. You need to walk at least for 10 to 20 minutes a day, or do some kind of cardio. I've got a bike that I use because it's easier on my back and body. Stretching, weightlifting, not so much weightlifting, but bands, anything that stretches. I like the bands better than anything. 20 minutes a day, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day. We need to get a good hour, half hour of that, and do that every day. So that is part of our challenge of what we're going to be doing. And Werner, I'm going to be your first guy because I hate that stuff. I'm going to be straight with you. I hate it. I don't like it, but
add 5 very, very, very deep breaths per day as well.
Okay. Breathing. All right. Tell me what the breathing is. Basically, so many counts in, hold, and so many counts out. Tell me what that is.
Well, this one is a relaxing one.
Yeah.
Was 4 counts in and 6 counts out. But the other one that I think is even more important is the really filling up and filling up and filling up and filling up, because we want every single one of the little crevices in our lungs to be expanded. And we want all of those little muscles to be working. And the same on the extrusion to the point where I can't, I've got nothing left.
So how much should that be, like 5 minutes a day or something?
No, just 5 times.
5 times. So suck it in as long as you can, and blow it out as long as you can. Take a little rest, do it again and out, and do that. And one of the things that'll help you is with your stress. Just simply doing that one thing will reduce your stress by quite a bit. All right, so that's what our goal is right here. Everything else you've talked about is wonderful. Werner, I'm going to ask you to be my coach. You're going to be my accountability coach, because I hate all that stuff. I'd like to just get up in the morning and go do my thing. But I dang near died when I was 32 years of age, and 1/3 of the people who have a heart attack are dead. They're gone. I'm lucky. I'm living on borrowed time. I get that. And, I've got 2 special needs adult children that that I've spent 40 years getting them financially set so that they're fine. And all that extra excess I put into the foundation to give that away. So that's what we do. And that's why we're here. We want you to wear out. We want you to be in your 90s. Warren Buffett and my father, my dad is 4 days older than Warren Buffett, and he's 90. Buffett's 92 right now. And your goal is to be 92 or 90, at least in your 90s. That's what your goal is. So that's what we got to do. That's what I'm going to work on. And I want all of you to do the same. Now we're going to end this segment right now. We're going to come back and we're going to start making some more money. And we're going to teach you a little bit about real estate, because in America, 65% of the people, 65% of the households own a home. In our student base right now, it's around 30 to 35. And one of the things we want you to do is we want you to get your own home, and we want you to get into real estate. More importantly, we don't care if it's real estate or whatever it is. We're going to teach you the systems to be able to find and flip and sell something so that you can make an extra chunk of cash. And we're going to use real estate as that example, but we can use it with anything. And we're going to teach you about how to find good deals, how to fund them, how to fix stuff, and then how to either farm it, get rental income out of it, or flip it. Be right back in just a second, and we're going to get into that section. And then I've got a good friend of mine, a young man that's 15 years of age that owns more real estate than the vast majority of everyone on this class. And he's, Devin is on with us today. Well, he's going to be doing a segment right after I do. And then we're going to talk a little bit about getting those investment accounts open and getting them funded. Be right back. See you in just a minute.